Isn't this a sports show?
I'm nothing if not smooth and professional.
And needy.
And extremely needy.
That's
Don't
fine.
nod so hard, Beards.
Almost entirely.
I want to eat a Jigglypuff! All right? I'll say it.
Wait,
cowards.
hang on.
No!
Hang on.
No!
Hang on.
No! I want to eat a Jigglypuff!
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Sports! Sports! We're talking about sports! Pew, 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 pew.
Take the show with you by listening on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app at 810WHB.com or by searching for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts.
I looked at the Facebook comments earlier. No one said that we sucked yet today.
That's not an invite, people.
That's not an invitation! You go back into the hole from whence you came!
This is Almost Entirely Sports on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
It is indeed, and we are going to have an even more unique show tonight than usual, I think, because we have a chance to, in real time, witness the complete loss of Rudy Salazar. Because as we begin, so does Game 6 of Nuggets-Blazers. If the Nuggets win this game, I keep losing our television, so I'm not going to get to know what's going on. If the Nuggets win this game, the series is over. If the Nuggets lose this game, they take Dame Lillard to Game 7, so that's something that we can watch. Rudy's just entire day change in real time. He is Rudy Salazar. I am Joshua Brisco. Beards McFly on the other side of the glass. We're off the air at 9:30 tonight because at 9:30 the real game begins when the Phoenix Suns go for the 6-game series win over the Los Angeles Lakers.
I was going to interrupt you and say you mean the Nuggets Blazers post-game show, but then I was like, you know what, I'm going to let them have this.
Thank you. I'm rooting for your Nuggets here. I feel like the least you could do is just sort of.
Oh, I'm rooting for the Suns, absolutely.
What do we think the secret freaking lock screen code is for the right TV today? Because it was off when I sat down. What's the cap? Is it the Capcom? The left, right, down, up, A, B, down, 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 left, 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 up, up, A, B.
Yeah, that's how you get it.
It's around that, yeah. It's something like that.
Whatever witchcraft controls our televisions here is less complicated than that. It would be easier for me to go input a cheat code into my GameCube copy of NFL Street 2 than it would be to get the bat. No, stop turning off! Both of these, we have these two TVs in the studio that are side by side.
Hold on, I'm putting them on screen.
Fine, dude, I can't see it. So you do you. There's no hold on. There's no hold on, Beards. I can't see what you're doing.
That's what I told you.
We have these two TVs in the studio, and one of the issues is that they're identical and they use one remote. So trying to turn on the right TV while the left TV is already on typically also ends up turning off the left TV. And I don't know, like last night it was working fine. So at some point in the last 24 hours, somebody decided to do something fun and quirky with the left television, the right television. And I now
struggling,
cannot get it to turn back on. And I just turned off the left TV again.
This is the stuff I'm here for.
I know it's also terrible radio, but they're terrible television. It's so frustrating. I'm going to fight through it though, because there is some interesting stuff tonight in addition to all the basketball.
We don't need TVs here.
I would love to be able to watch the basketball game that we're going to talk about in real time.
It's not.
And I'd like to see our video.
Or anything.
I'd like to see our videos. Our video feed is what I would like to do. Here, Rudy, do me a favor. Go bleep yourself. Take that remote. Go over there and right under the right TV. See if you can get. Because the light was on earlier. I'm so far away that anything I do also hits the left TV. So you got to get really up under that right TV, and you just hit buttons, I guess, for a second.
I've hit it a few times. Don't do anything.
Yeah, well. All right. Well, I'm just not going to be able to. I like to be able to see what shot we have for our video feeds, which you can watch, by the way, on our Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube channels.
Every now and then, this TV does just kind of stop turning on.
That's
not working.
Yeah.
Give it a week, it'll be fine.
Yeah, I would like it to work now, if possible, but It's what do they say? You hope in one hand and spit in the other. I currently have one TV and some spit in my hand, just based off of that analogy.
I don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah, neither am I. I'm just gonna shut down here. Rudy is basically trying to cast a spell on it right now, and he turned off the left TV. Perfect. Because earlier the red light was.
So the red light's not here.
It was though. It was when I sat down. The red light was on the right TV, and it's currently on the. I see that, but it was.
Broken. It's not coming on. That's like a big fix.
It's a big fix.
Yeah, that's a big fix. Fix that I don't know how to make happen.
How did it? It was working 24 hours ago.
I mean, listen, it could be like the TV that's down in 1510, where every time there's a power surge in the building, it flips between working and not working.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can watch us live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch pages. I can't.
Yeah, you can open up Twitch.
I mean, yeah, but I've got a lot of screens pointing at me already. But you can watch us there, and we'll keep an eye on Nuggets Blazers, as we also try to keep an eye. Beards are clicking very loudly.
Yeah, I know.
Did you realize that your mic was still on?
No, not until I said it. I was.
No, I know.
You just did it again. So we'll keep an eye on Nuggets Blazers, and then at night, Beards. Has this segment not started crummily enough? But listen, whenever I'm doing good radio and you do some bad radio to balance us out, that's kind of our whole brand. But whenever I'm in the sewer and you're just like, here's more poop for this sewer, it's not multiplying two negatives. It's just adding two negatives.
What do they say? 2 wrongs make a right?
Just opening the Google Doc for today. We got another round of OTAs in the books. The Chiefs had their 3 days of practices. Today was the day that Muti was able to be out there. You're able to hear from some coaches and stuff from the podium. And listen, you don't have to push me very far for me to admit that most press conferences I find to be not all that worthwhile. And you get some nuggets here. If you ask a good question, you can build off it and all that. But for the most part, like at this point, Andy Reid's been doing this for a really long time. And the idea that he's going to like slip up and give us too much information just doesn't really happen anymore. The only topic that I think was somewhere within that vein is the one that I'm choosing to ignore today, which is Patrick Mahomes saying he would like for the Chiefs to go 20-0 because what else would he say? What else would he possibly bleeping say?
He wants to win, Josh!
What do you want him to say other than, hey, would you have any records you'd like to break? Yeah, I mean, I guess going undefeated would be nice. Yeah, that makes sense. It's a thing to say as the quarterback of a very good football team.
Do you hear any other quarterbacks saying it? I didn't think so.
I want him to respect the game. Respect the shield.
Andy Reid said, and I'll paraphrase so I can move on from this forever. He was like, yeah, what else do you want him to say? But he said it slightly more diplomatically than that. God bless him for it.
Respect the shield.
I want nothing. I want to move on from that story forever because it's an absolute nightmare nonsense story.
Mad Dog.
The Lakers are favored tonight?
Oh,
get out of here.
I mean, it is in L.A.
Get out of here. Yeah, and Anthony Davis's groin is made out of crepe paper, and LeBron looks 97 years old. But it's in Los Angeles.
Mad Dog Texas Jones on Twitch says 2 beards makes a Brisco.
I don't like that.
And you spelled your name with an E.
I like that even less.
I like it a lot.
His first comment was, yo, my guys, let's have a fantastic show like you always do. Wrong. Yeah. And keep Rudy from hurting that beautiful face of his.
So Mad Dog has changed his Twitch name, but I forget the old one, but it was basically anytime, like, because like sometimes I'll sit here like during a commercial break with my hand on my face. And so he's constantly like, which, I mean, hey, it is a beautiful face.
Don't want to mess it up, absolutely.
It can take some damage.
Redondo McDonald, though, asked if we've tried turning the TV off and on again.
That's a tough one to say, though. His Ronaldo McDonaldo, like that.
They should rhyme, but they don't.
But yes, it's a little tough.
If I would say Ronaldo, and then I would say McDonaldo, and it doesn't. And they look like they should be rhyming though, and they don't. So I did try turning it off and back on again, and it just went off. Thank you for your question. But most of the pressers that we get just throughout sports, you'll get a good soundbite here or there. But what it mostly is if you get 8 minutes of talking from somebody, if you leave that interaction with 25 seconds of good audio, you have won. You have won the interaction if you get one good clip like that. That is generally, I think, the healthiest way to think about press conferences.
Mm-hmm.
Except on Steve Spagnuolo days.
Miss that man.
I did not realize how much I missed hearing from Spags until I was hearing from him today. And not only is it just he gave Pete Sweeney just a real hard time for he asked a question, and Spags pointed out that behind Pete he had a bunch of like Patrick Mahomes things, like he had Matt's book and Teicher's book and all that. And Spags said, first of all, before I answer your question, I see offense, I see 15, 15, 15. I don't see any defense back behind you there. Can we get some defense back there? And then he forgot the question, then Pete asked it again, and we'll get to that question because it was a great question that Spags got distracted by because it's all offense behind Pete. That's audio that didn't make the cut for today. I loved hearing from Spags because he also gives like good insight on some of these things that we have spent a decent amount of these last couple of months talking about in these big macro senses, where we say, well, they signed Jaron Reid. What's the plan with Chris Jones? We're gonna hear that basically the answer in a few seconds. Like we are getting answers to questions, not just sort of this obtuse coach speak that's somewhere adjacent to an answer to the question that we're actually asking. And I love that from Spags because none of this is going to be some sort of competitive disadvantage that's ultimately going to cost them in January or February. We're talking about Chris Jones in June. We have a little room to have a conversation here, and Spags will just give you a little bit of that good stuff. You'll have a good time hearing from him. The press conference is over, and you go, boy, that was over quicker than I wanted it to be, which I almost never say about press conferences. But it's true for Spags. He talked about Chris Jones. He talked about the red zone defense, which has been a bit of a recurring topic so far this offseason. He talked about L'Jarius Sneed and what his role might be, what the Chiefs might do if they don't end up bringing Bashaud Breeland back, which I will say after this today, did we get Matt on? We had Matt Derrick in studio when we were filling in for the Zone on Monday. Did we get him up to 0.9% chance that this Chiefs do re-sign Bashaud Breeland?
He was at 0.8, and I can't remember if we got him up just to a full percentage.
I don't think he went up to a full
0.9.
Yeah, I don't think he went back all the way up to a full. It was either 0.9 or 1% chance though.
Yeah, he started at 0.8, and we talked him up a little.
Whenever we talk to Matt next, we can check in about this. I guess it probably won't be Monday though, because I'm filling in for Sir Petra on the program. So no AES on Monday programming. No.
Maybe.
That's true. I'm assuming, but I think that's probably the case. I guess you know what? I probably won't be here for AES on Monday. Maybe you guys get Matt Derrick. You're gonna be on the remote. Beers, you want to host on Monday?
Not really.
No. Tough bleep.
Yeah.
But anyway, I most likely will not be talking to Matt Derrick here on Monday. Probably. Who knows? Things change. But if we were asking him right now, if you're asking me right now, I would never have said it was as low as 1%. But I think whatever it was before today, it definitely lowered for me a good amount because Spags didn't really seem like he was necessarily propping the door open for Breeland on that topic. We'll hear from him on that as well. But a few really good Spags clips here, and we'll get a little bit from Andy Reid, a little bit from Patrick Mahomes coming up here in a second as well. Again, we're only going until 9:30 tonight because that's when coverage begins of Suns versus Lakers Game 6. I think it actually tips off at a couple minutes after 9:30, theoretically. That's what it's scheduled for, I believe. Whatever happens with Nuggets Blazers before could impact it. I don't know exactly, but we will be done at 9:30. We'll hand it over to ESPN for coverage of Suns Lakers. Until then, though, we'll talk to Harold Kuntz of Fox4 coming up here in a little less than an hour, about 45 minutes from now. We'll talk to him about being out there at the pressers today and what he heard from these guys. And I think he was actually out there for the game itself. And we'll hear from him. Ooh, the Trailblazers are wearing those Oregon jerseys.
Oregon.
Nugget. What did I say?
Oregon.
What did you say?
Oregon.
What did I say?
Oregon.
Who's on first?
They're not wearing livers out there.
They're wearing their Oregon jerseys, like the state that Portland is in.
They're livered, colored Oregons.
That's
jerseys.
their Oregon-colored Oregon jerseys.
Yeah. Or what?
So, anyway, Nuggets are going to win this game based on the jerseys alone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I have decided it is true.
That.
We'll talk to Harold at 8, and we'll talk to our friend Scott Chasen at 9, resident Suns fan, and I want to talk to him about Suns Lakers. And also, there's some interesting stuff going on with KU. He covers the Jayhawks, but we'll talk about both of those things with him a little bit at 9 tonight. But in the meantime, let's get to some Spags audio. You've been wandering through the wilderness with no Steve Spagnuolo audio for a while now, and I want to give you that bright, shiny, shimmering light on the hilltop.
Well, thank you.
That is, you're welcome again. That is Steve Spagnuolo talking about the Kansas City Chiefs defense. And let's start, you know what, Beards? I'm going to call it audible. I'd like to start with the Snead and Breland one because that's been such a huge topic for us on this show. It's been something that I have obviously lost sleep, hair, blood, sweat, tears to this topic. And Spags was asked about it today. This was the question that followed him roasting Pete's Zoom background, which was still just absolutely wonderful. But Pete asked Spags, you know, if Breland isn't back and you're looking at a place where maybe L'Jarius Sneed ends up being kind of kicked out to the outside to try to shore up over there, what do you expect from Sneed? What are you expecting to do with the defense as you sort of figure out how it's going to look different at that cornerback position this upcoming season than it did last year?
Well, I tell you what, I think back in Philadelphia, we had Bobby Taylor. What we did with Bobby is he played outside in the 4 DB packages, and then he moved in the 5 DB. So we may go that route. A little bit of it is going to depend upon I'm going to just say the next corner that surfaces, or is there a next corner that surfaces? If we need to keep him on the outside, we'll do that. I think until then, we'll probably work them at both and then just see where it goes. We really need to find out what we have in the quote unquote other corners, if that makes sense.
I think that's genuinely fascinating. In 36 seconds, he gave me 2 little nuggets there that I think are really impactful for how this conversation progresses throughout the rest of this offseason.
Austin Rivers is like 6'4".
What?
He's a little nugget. I got it, Beards.
Thank you.
You're not welcome. So he gave me 2 little nuggets, and Beards was defending Austin Rivers because he's like 6'4".
Monte Morris is a little nugget.
Faku's a really little nugget.
Faku, indeed. What's his last name?
Campazzo.
Just wanted to get some context there. Faku Campazzo is an NBA basketball player for the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah.
Just so we're clear.
He's a little nugget.
So
A little
Spags...
Argentinian nugget, too. A little spice.
So Spags brings up 2 things there. I want to watch my words much more carefully. Spags brings up 2 things there that I think are really, really interesting throughout this conversation. One is saying, hey, here's this example from whenever I was in Philadelphia. He adds a syllable in there somewhere. Where it's not crazy to say, hey, if you're looking at L'Jarius Sneed, or you go back to that example from Philly, if you're in a 4 DB package, which is essentially we're saying your 2 outside corners and your 2 safeties, you're playing on the outside. Once you go into a sub package, you need 5 DBs on the field. You go into a nickel package where you're going to have a slot corner out there. You would have Sneed or whoever, in this example it's Sneed, so you would have him kick in from playing on the outside in a base package to playing in the slot in sub packages. Mm-hmm. Now, there are 5 DBs in the field for the Chiefs like 75% of the time. Not a perfect average over Spags' time as DC, but it's that 70 to 80% kind of range if memory serves. They're in sub packages with at least 3 corners on the field the majority of the time. And I think the best thing for L'Jarius Sneed, L'Jarius Sneed's most impactful role, the place where he is the biggest asset for the Chiefs, I think, is in the slot. We've talked about this this offseason, but we're gonna talk about it a whole lot more. But Sneed was playing the outside before he got hurt. He got hurt and he came back with just being this absolute defensive weapon who's blitzing out of the slot like better than anybody that I can think of off the top of my head in that particular role. Like like doing some Tyrann Mathieu kind of stuff, but like, and no, listen, please don't tweet me, Tyrann. This is not an insult, but like young Tyrann Mathieu,
A bit more dynamic. A bit
Honey
more,
Badger,
yeah.
Tyrann Mathieu.
A bit more explosive.
He's more landlord now, right?
Yeah.
Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu, just the dude that was just kind of all over the place, like a fly.
A bit more reckless, almost, right?
Yeah,
you're
reckless is a
not
good
quite
word.
smart, like you know what I mean. Like Tyrann Mathieu, has brought it down a little bit, in part because he's just gotten so smart, right? And knowing like, I can't make this play, so I'm not going to try to make this play. L'Jarius Sneed's like, I'm out here, I'm going to make every play.
I'm just going to go. He's always holding down the turbo button, it kind of seems like.
Basically, yes. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it's great.
He also didn't get like burnt a bunch or anything, so we're exaggerating to some extent. But like having that kind of versatility,
more prone to get beat,
with those numbers of various ways that he can use his skill set and everything, is a really, really valuable like explosive trait to have. And so I really don't like the idea very much of that being taken out of the Chiefs defense. I think you have that. Don't overthink it. Don't force him into a box and say, well, he's our second best corner, or maybe he's our best corner. Let's leave him outside 100% of the time. And it's come up a couple of times from conversations, I don't remember who off the top of my head, but like from people that we've had on the show. So smart people whose opinions I respect, who say, you know, well, it is a tall order to ask a corner to play on the outside 30% of the time and then 70% of the time step into the slot. Because you're kind of playing two different positions in a lot of ways. Being a boundary corner is different than being a slot corner. We're at an evolution of the sport right now where being a slot corner in some ways is more difficult because you don't get the help from the boundary. I am really intrigued that Spags kind of volunteered that, like, yeah, we've done that before and I might do it again. I don't know, we'll figure it out. So that I think is worth noting. That having Sneed outside that kicks in the sub packages, that is on the table in Spags' mind. So keep that in your mind now for through training camp, basically. The other thing was that a couple of references there to the next corner that surfaces, or whoever the quote-unquote next guy ends up being, which is exactly how we talk about it, but it's just sort of it's just a pretty casual, kind of honest read into the defense that Spags gives there, which is to say, hey, man, listen, here's what we know. Charvarius Ward is going to start unless something terrible happens. Yep. He's a penciled-in starter. Sneed is going to be on the field 75% of the time minimum. But what we do with Sneed does largely depend on DeAndre Baker and him coming back from his broken leg. Unless something changed. Last week, I know he was not a participant. Yeah.
He was there, but not doing anything.
I'm not 100% sure actually about this week. I needed to double check on that. But, you know, how does DeAndre Baker progress? Can Mike Hughes be a starting outside corner in the NFL? You know, does Bo Pete Keys have something in there? There's this. What is Rashad? Could Rashad Fenton be an excellent slot corner? Can he play on the outside? Whatever it ends up being. It's just, I think it's relatively rare for a coach to just say, like, yeah, of course what we do with this guy is going to also hinge on these other guys because we want to have the best unit possible. And so if having Sneed play outside and then kick in, which maybe isn't the easiest thing, but if that's the best way to maximize your talent, we'll do that. It's a flexible way of thinking and a flexible way of coaching that I'm very happy to hear about. And whenever we talk about the defensive line in a little bit, we'll have a very similar conversation then of Spags saying, we are going to move guys around to find our mismatches, to find our best combinations, to find our biggest strengths, and to maximize those and to minimize our weaknesses. So if DeAndre Baker is healthy by training camp, and throughout training camp, he looks like the dude that earned the first round draft pick position. He was like late.
He was like 30.
I would say late 20s or right at the very top of the 30s. But whatever number that is, I think it might have been exactly 30.
I think it was 30.
But if he comes and plays like that dude throughout camp, because again, he wasn't, Mike Hughes kind of busted out in Minnesota, 30?
Yep, 30.
Mike Hughes busted out in Minnesota, which is why he's here. DeAndre Baker was being extorted, we think.
Yes.
obviously, the broken leg is the bigger game changer now. But let's say he comes out and he plays great. If he looks like a number one outside corner and Tarvarius Ward just looks like the Tarvarius Ward we've seen more or less over the last couple of seasons, you can start those guys on the outside and have L'Jarius Sneed on the field for 80% of the snaps in a role that lets him specialize in being, a little Honey Badger-esque, and kind of some of that organized chaos sort of stuff. That'd be fine, but that'd be totally fine by me. If they figure out that Rashad Fenton can be a really excellent slot corner, and that means they want to leave L'Jarius Sneed on the outside because they think Fenton can fill that role really well, then fine. Then L'Jarius Sneed can be on the field 100% of the time, which is a good thing, and he can just be the outside guy. It'll be him and Ward on the outside and Fenton in the slot. That's all fine. If Mike Hughes plays well, if whatever, all of these different pieces, the biggest advantage of Sneed, and one of the things that's come up for me in terms of being kind of frustrated by the idea that, you just put him outside and don't worry about bringing back Bashad Breeland. The biggest, at least sneaky advantage for Sneed is that he is versatile enough to help you cover up whatever your biggest issue is in your group of corners. That's really valuable. So I hope they get to maximize that.
He's also by far their biggest playmaker, right? Like he might not be the best pure
among
shutdown
corners,
corner. Yeah, among the corner group. Like it's possible this year Tarvarius Ward goes out and is the better like pure corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bashad Breeland got brought back. He would be the better pure cover corner.
Yeah.
Sneed is is their best playmaker among that group because he can just kind of do like you said, because he can do a little bit of everything. He's shown the ability to pick off passes, to find like when the ball's up in the air to make plays on the ball, and he's shown the ability to essentially to be one of their top 3 pass rushers, which is weird from a corner, but he shows that ability and just like a knack for, again, here's the ball, I'm going to make a play on it.
And that's specifically that part also, again, with the pass rushing thing. I mean, how long is that list of guys who were, corners who could also rush the passer? I think it's L'Jarius Sneed, Justin Houston, end of list. Probably just gave a few people the dog having the Vietnam flashbacks, that gif. I'm sorry if I did that to anybody. I just saw it sitting there and I couldn't help myself.
You had to.
I had to.
You had to.
The Chiefs won the Super Bowl, all right? We can make jokes about things before that now. Yeah. It's no longer too soon because they won a championship.
They won a Super Bowl. They're the defending champions, and nothing ever happened. It was a shame that last season got canceled due to COVID. It's a shame.
It's crazy because they got through the entire season.
But it happened.
They said, "Hey, Super Bowl time, Chiefs Bucks," and then they said, "You know what? We can't play the Super Bowl game," so it didn't happen. Really unfortunate.
Really.
Somebody should look into why that happened that way. Let's take a break.
Or
Whenever we come
Call
back.
Ted Wells.
Or not look into it. Maybe we just accept it for what it was.
Let's call Ted Wells and make sure that doesn't happen. Bribe him so he stays away.
Beards, can you come fix this TV?
No.
Let's take a break. Whenever we come back, 2 more Spags clips that I think they're going to be worth your time. We'll talk to Harold Kuntz of Fox4 in 30 minutes. Scott Chasen in an hour.
Want more Almost Entirely Sports? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 Facebook page. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports.
The problem with this bit is that it does make Steve Spagnuolo sound like a total crazy person.
Yeah, that's fair.
Who's just wandering the world constantly confused. And I don't think he's
What's going
always
on here?
confused. He just never knows what time it is. And you ask him about like listen, it's Thursday. You can ask me questions about the game last week. I'm on to the Chargers.
With Joshua Brisco.
Who did we play last week?
What was that accent, you think?
I just kind of lost it there somewhere.
Yeah. I wish I could lose you somewhere.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I used to be able to fix the TVs around here.
I'm not sure if you ever actually used to be able to.
I did. I did because I was
I think you just
basically
got lucky once.
Rudy. As if think back to Chiefs post games of years past. Who do you think fixed the TV for that
Frank Ball.
every week?
Frank
I'll
Ball.
give you two hints.
Jack
It was-
Harry.
I'll give you three hints.
Between setting
Shut
the
up.
TVs
Turn off his
up
microphone. Rudy's
and
blaspheming.
and fixing the TV.
Rudy's making me angry. I'll give you three
Anthony
hints.
Pershant.
I don't care.
No, you
I will.
care.
I don't. Not yet. I will.
Pershant, Anthony
I can't
Davis
finish it,
groin
God.
plans to play in Game 6.
Yeah, it's fine. He plans to lose also. As long as warm-ups go accordingly. I'm shaking. I'll give you three hints.
In rage.
I'll give you three hints as to who set up the TVs every Sunday.
Yeah, Danny.
Here are your three hints.
Danny.
It wasn't. Can I get the punchline out? I'll give you three hints.
Okay.
Do you want to say Danny again?
No, I want to hear the hints.
It's not Frank Bull. It wasn't
Gotcha.
Danny Klingscale, and it wasn't Jack Harry.
So it was Danny.
No. That was one of the hints.
Brad Porter.
No.
Jason Anderson.
Derek. I don't know anyone with that name. I used to have a mastery of this television system, and I'm stumped by this one. I really thought the first hour of today's show was going to go well and be like fun. We're going to have Spags audio.
I mean, to be fair,
Instead, I'm trying to rip a television off the wall, and
you're the only one in a bad mood right now. Me and Beards, it's just a normal show for us. We're good. You're just letting the TV.
I wonder if there's any correlation in
control what you can control.
I got a hangnail.
Don't let these things that you can't control affect your performance. You think Michael Porter Jr. is letting things he can't control affect his performance? No, man's got 22 points in the first quarter.
He's given up 22 as well.
He's not here to play defense. He's here to score points.
Clearly. Yeah, that does appear to be
They
evident.
are doing a weird thing of having him on Dame more often than he probably should be because that just,
That screams like a good idea.
right? Like I'm not a basketball genius by any means. It just feels like Dame is gonna get his, so maybe that's just the thought process. Is like it doesn't matter who we put on him. Like let's let our better defenders go elsewhere because Dame's gonna get 50 regardless. I don't know. Just doesn't seem like a great like the best idea. But he's got 22 offensively, so.
What's the score right now? I can't see.
28-27 Portland. Everybody's making their shots. Nobody's missing. A lot of threes. Nuggets are 6 for 9 from 3.
You have any feelings towards that?
It's pretty nice.
I have dust on my hands. I'm trying to just trying to find the. Here's the thing about these TVs.
Just so.
I just want to. Every single night, we have the setup where I can see like our visual shots, and I like, even though it's clearly not the main audience, I like being able to play two videos, and I like being able to see what Beards is doing with the switcher over there.
Yeah.
I like having that element of the show. I like being able to have it basically monitor for it.
Understandable.
I'm just used to it at this point.
Yeah.
It'd be like doing a show without headphones. I could do it, and there have been segments when that's essentially happened, but I would rather not. And so I just thought I'd be able to fix the television. But it's like, well, what if you just stop using the remote and just hit the actual button? The button is on the left side of the TV, which is directly butted up against the left TV. And so I can't get in between the two to hit that button because they're both mounted there.
Yeah. I feel for you, man.
Clearly. The good news is that even in our darkest hour, we still have one thing.
Each other.
Spags. Steve Spagnuolo.
The real Steve Spagnuolo is the friends we made along the way?
The real friends we made along the way was Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah.
Do you think he could fix our TVs?
Yes. Like 14 seconds with maybe a random screwdriver or like a pair of needle nose pliers.
It's like great.
I don't think he would even need to use them for it.
Yeah.
I think he'd can I get a screwdriver? And then he'd just hand him a screwdriver, and then he would just reach up and then just hit the button.
Just a little like knock on it with the butt end of the bat.
That's
the
exactly it.
butt end of the screwdriver. That applies.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a little pop and it just turns on.
It plays like the THX sound effect, where it moves.
Yeah.
Just boom. I think that's what it would do.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, at least we have Spags. We talked about the cornerback thing already, talked about Snead and Breland, and we'll continue to talk about them plenty for the remainder of the offseason, into the season, through the season, after next season, for the rest of eternity, I imagine. Because they're just not going to draft corners, and that's fine. I've come to accept it. But they're not going to draft corners highly, I should note.
Yeah. 5th round at best. 4th round.
Fourth.
Stay with the 4th round.
Yeah, fourth.
Third day.
Day 3 is cornerback time.
Day 3 is corner day.
And that's, fair enough. But one of the interesting other things that we talked about a little bit whenever the Chiefs signed Jarran Reid, the former Seahawks defensive tackle. One thing they haven't really done is watching both of you guys react to the NBA game. While I look at my notes and I look
behind,
up.
So I'm.
Paul Millsap
ahead.
just needs to stop playing basketball.
Oh, are you at the elbow?
No, I'm
Or
at
you have the super short
the
three?
second. That's his second super short 3. He just needs to stop playing basketball. He's not good anymore.
Rudy's watching it on a stream. So actually, Rudy, what you don't know is this game just went in overtime. And Rudy's watching it on stream. Beards is watching it on TV, just sort of nodding along like a vaguely impressed dad at a Little League game. Rudy is fist pumping and flailing.
No, fist pumping the Nuggets. Like Michael Porter Jr. has 22 points, and then all of a sudden Paul Millsap and JaMychal Green are like, no, we're going to take all the threes now. Like, what are you guys doing?
Veteran leadership, baby.
Give it to the guy who got 22 points. It's like having Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback and just handing the ball off to a running back.
Now we're all mad.
I'm okay.
Danny Ainge quit before he did anything worthwhile. You mad yet?
No, I'm okay.
Brad
Dude.
Stevens got forced into the front office,
I mean, probably not.
where he won't be any good at the job.
I disagree.
Cyberpunk might be the worst game in just history.
That's definitely wrong.
It's a fried chicken shortage.
How dare!
So
Man, I got him.
Spags talked a little bit about this. He was asked about Jarran Reid. Andy Reid even brought up Jarran Reid. I think apropos of nothing. Last week, I think he mentioned Jarran Reid when talking about something on a broader topic. And one of the things that came up when they signed Jarran Reid was, well, could you pop him and Derek Nottie in the middle of the defensive line on passing downs at least? Third down, likely passing situations.
Yeah.
Or you put him in there with Tershawn Wharton or Colin Saunders or whatever. Could you pop those guys in the middle and then have Chris Jones kick out to defensive end? And to be honest, I think my take on this is relatively similar to my L'Jarius Sneed thought process at this point, which is that I don't really want to take players out of the place that we know they can be super impactful and put them in another position where maybe they would have a chance to have a higher ceiling, but there's certainly more unknown there. Because it's not Madden. You can't just move players to a place where all of a sudden they go from being a 74 overall to a 92 because you move your defensive ends to defensive tackle or vice versa.
Yeah.
Chris Jones has played on the outside some. It hasn't been his best work, but Steve Spagnuolo was asked today by our own Seren Petro about the idea of Chris Jones possibly playing outside more and then how he could make that transition without sacrificing what he already does so well on the inside.
That's a great observation, a great question. I have posed that to myself quite a bit because he is an imposing player inside. We all know that. If we move him outside on a number of the snaps, and he's going to have to be flexible to do both. We will miss that. Hopefully, we will gain something on the edge. When somebody changes a position, obviously the first hurdle is the mental part of it. So Chris is working through that, and he's been great. He's been here and been part of the whole thing, and I think that's important when you change a position. It's just not that easy to pick up a whole new spot, and we do some different things with the defensive end. So he'll play out there a little bit. We'll move him back inside when we have to. But I think it's a great point that you're making. I think your question is, how do you balance that? I'm not sure how you do that yet. Maybe it'll come down to, and I think we'll probably do a little bit of this, will come down to who we're playing and where maybe we can find a weakness and maybe expose that weakness, in the 5 offensive linemen. But all of that, we just got to get him used to playing the 2 spots right now and figure out the rest of it later on.
It's clearly a part of the plan. Like, that is extremely evident. We thought that was probably a part of the equation, but you hear Spags say at the end there, well, you just got to get him comfortable with both spots. We'll figure it out. I do, while I am not a huge fan of you're good at this thing, can you also be good at this thing? I do very much like the idea of, hey, you're a dominant, game-changing player. Can we put you in a different spot here or here to offset the opponent, to expose their weakness in the biggest way? I do think that's a pretty good sort of bloodthirsty attitude to have as a defense and as a defensive coordinator. You heard that come up with Spags talking about Snead. You heard it come up with Spags talking about Chris Jones. But you hear him say that you got to be comfortable at both. He used the phrase changing positions. He mentioned... He said something along the lines there of we'll move him back inside when we need to, sort of implying, to me at least, that he's starting on the outside and that maybe that is the main idea and that he'll move inside as the changeup. Maybe instead of having him play outside on passing downs, maybe the logic is we'll move you inside on an occasion where maybe we actually feel really good about Taco Charlton, and we do want Chris Jones back on the inside on passing downs. For me, the biggest thing right there, just to sort of explain the differentiation, is that I don't know exactly how Chris Jones is going to hold an edge in a run game. If you have him on the outside in running situations, I don't know. But also you could say, hey, how is he going to hold the middle of a line, in an obvious running situation, kind of up the gut? He's not Derek Nottie. Derek Nottie is a boulder of a human being. Well, Chris Jones is more explosive as a pass rusher. I do think he'll be able to do it from a variety of places, but I don't think that the Rams are trying to figure out a different place to put Aaron Donald. If you think that he can be the guy that exploits, again, a weakness in your favor, then I'm all for it. Here's my concern, because this really isn't a place. I really think the Chiefs should have and should still re-sign Bashaud Breeland. But this is not a set in stone conviction here. But I hope, and I'm concerned, I hope that they're not moving Chris Jones out of his best position to go play his second best position because they didn't add an edge that they really like opposite Frank Clark. Because that, for me, is when you start hustling backwards a little bit. I hope they don't move L'Jarius Sneed outside because they chose not to sign Bashaud Breeland. If you're going to move Sneed outside, it should be because he's going to be excellent in that role. If you're going to move Chris Jones to the edge, it should be because he's going to be excellent in that role. If you're moving them because you're trying to cover up for some positional thinness at various spots, that, I think, is how you start finding yourself in a little bit of extra trouble. So that's the thing that's on my radar. I'm not sure that that's happening. I'm not confident that that's happening. That's the thing that I am most worried about at this point, is that they are moving guys to their second best positions in terms of Snead and Chris Jones because they didn't re-sign Bashaud Breeland and drafted a linebacker with their first pick instead of an edge, or haven't yet to this point brought in a veteran edge to play opposite Frank Clark as opposed to just having Taco Charlton there. So just some things to keep an eye on and something that I'm being aware of at this point. Because again, if you're using it as an aggressor, if you're using it offensively as opposed to defensively, making a clear and obvious distinction, these are all defensive players. If you're using it to create matchup advantages for you, great. If you're using it to cover up roster deficiencies, it makes me nervous. That, for me, that's the clear differentiation that I would make in a situation like this. So the other element of it, we're not really going to know for a long time as to how this actually plays out. In training camp, maybe they'll get a little bit of a feel for how Chris Jones handles going up against Orlando Brown Jr. or going up even against, Lucas Niang or Mike Rimmers or whoever it ends up being. Right now in OTAs, dudes are in shorts and walkthroughs and everything, and that it's the biggest, most physical hit of this week was Orlando Brown Jr. decking Tyreek Hill on a touchdown celebration gone wrong. There's a video of that up on the Chiefs Twitter account. That is the most violent thing you'll see in OTAs. The second most violent thing you'll see is me attacking this television during the next break.
At JB Brisco, at Beards McFly, at Not That Rudy, at Sports Radio 810. Just do it already. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco
Give D Ford my groin.
on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Let's do a quick wellness check on Rudy Salazar. The Nuggets and Blazers, spoiler alert, Rudy, it is 45-43 in my universe.
Nice. It's 45-41 in mine. So
that they had a shot.
Yeah.
How you feeling right now?
I mean, not bad. But I also get this feeling like Portland's just not going to miss any shots all night, and the Nuggets will just miss a few. That doesn't seem like that will lead to a W, but, I guess we'll see.
Well, keep an eye on that. Suns-Lakers at 9:30 tonight. We'll look a little closer at that at 9 whenever we talk.
Facu! He scored the point.
Please say his full name as often as you can.
Facu Campazzo.
We'll look to Scott Chasen about all that stuff here in about an hour from now at 9 o'clock. But coming up next, Harold Kuntz of Fox4. He was out there for the pressers of the Chiefs OTAs and all that good stuff. We'll talk to him. But what he thought was interesting from today's press conferences, where the Chiefs stand right now, on a couple of the issues that we talked about over the course of this first hour. Maybe I'll ask him if he has any tips on how to fix television. Probably won't. We'll probably talk about Chiefs stuff for the most part. But maybe he could help.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
I'm Doug Brown on the NBA playoff scoreboard right now. Game 6 in Portland. The Nuggets and Trailblazers are tied at 47. Just under 6 minutes to go in the first half. The Nuggets looking for a series-clinching win. The Phoenix Suns have a chance tonight to knock out the defending NBA champs on the road. The Suns lead the Lakers 3-2. Game 6 tonight at Staples Center, and Lakers coach Frank Vogel doesn't know exactly who's playing yet.
And we really won't know about two of our starters. Obviously, a big key, Anthony Davis, but also Kentavious Caldwell-Pope are both uncertain.
You can hear more of that interview with Frank Vogel during our coverage of Suns and Lakers Game 6, which starts at 10 Eastern here on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski met the media today to talk about his last season with the Blue Devils and the only reason he's leaving, to spend more time with his family.
It's not about COVID or saying, boy, that year was so bad. It's not about that. It's certainly not about what's going on with college basketball, where, boy, the game's changing. All right. I've been in it for 46 years. You mean the game's never changed?
Mike Krzyzewski at the French Open today. Winners include Rafael Nadal, Novak Djokovic, Roger Federer, Sophia Kenin, Sloane Stephens, and Coco Gauff.
This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Almost Entirely Sports is a technical difficulty. That's fair.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again. Hearing from Steve Spagnuolo today was an absolute breath of fresh air in what has become a pretty stale time in football offseason mode. And one of the guys on the Zoom call today, I heard his voice. Harold, I don't remember which one it was, but I heard, oh, there's Harold. And then I knew at that point we were going to have something to talk about today. Harold Kuntz of Fox4 joins us now. You can follow him on Twitter at Harold R. Kuntz3. You can also follow at Fox4KC if you'd like, or you can just watch Channel 4 here in Kansas City. What was your favorite part of today's pressers? Because there were a couple little Easter eggs today that I thought were pretty good.
Well, my favorite part, one, is when Eric Bieniemy was livid that no one asked him the 20-0 question. That, to me, was the most – that was fantastic. And I sat there, and you listened along. I had to go back and count. There were 6 questions about 20-0. And I was sitting here like, okay, folks, like, let 3 alone, 4. There were 4 to Patrick and then 1 each to Andy Reid and not Andy Heck, but Steve Spagnuolo. And you're just sitting here like, what's going on, folks? Like, what is he supposed to say? I'd like to go 16-3, get a first round, but I'd like to go 13-3, maybe 12-4. No, like it's a non-story. Let's move on. But apparently it is because the good folks at ESPN, the top-notch product in the nation here. They're like, hold on, we've got some stunning sound bites from Patrick Mahomes coming up to tell you about how he's going to go 20-0. And then they followed it up with Keyshawn Johnson essentially saying, literally every player that's ever played the game of football wants to go 20-0. When I played high school basketball, I wanted to go 23-0. When I ran high school track, I wanted to win the 100-meter dash. You know what happened? I didn't win all. But hey, it wasn't like I was showing up saying, I get third. That's pretty solid. No, non-story. Let's move on.
It was such a wild. It's been such a wild and continuing to live on news cycle. Like that clip I think came out on Sunday, which also just some of the extra details of that I thought were hilarious. It was Patrick Mahomes in Hawaii at a charity golf tournament. Everything was sponsored. He was being interviewed by Travis Kelce's girlfriend.
Travis Kelce's girlfriend, yeah.
And she's done like hosting stuff in her own right. So I try to be very careful to say this is no fault of anybody's there. Every part of that is fine. And I'm glad they're all having a good time and raising money for his charity and all that. Wonderful. I also don't need to still be hearing about it the next Thursday. I didn't need to hear about it on Sunday or Monday.
No, you're exactly right. Now, I had been on vacation the whole time, so thankfully I didn't see all of it. But as I was catching up, I saw that the interview, and I realized the host, and I was like, Kayla Nicole, I know that name. Yeah. Oh, wow, they're really going there.
Yeah.
And then, you sit there, he's got the Oakley shades on, looking like, yep, this is Bleacher Report. This is where I'm at now. I'm cool. I'm above you. Great. And and then he sits there and just says, yeah, I want to go 20-0. He's like, what else? I've won a Super Bowl. I've won Super Bowl MVP. I've thrown for 5,000 yards. I got all the credentials. Like, you could make the argument that you could already put me in the Hall of Fame right now. So, yeah, 20-0. Let's do it. Like, he's probably had 2 or 3 cores. And he said it, but then you realize he had the cores. He legit means it. So good for him. It's like, everybody was sweat, but nobody puts it out there. Well, maybe more human beings should put it out there. But I also know this. It's a presumption that you should win every game.
Yeah.
You don't need to say it. And it's June.
I knew it was going to... We had joked about this a couple shows ago with Kent Swanson, where Kent was predicting how long it would be before Chiefs Twitter started eating itself alive just out of pure boredom. And I think this delayed us by another week because we all got to just stare at this story for this total non-story for a handful of days and learned absolutely nothing from it. I mean, just completely nonsense, completely worthless. And now we've fallen into the trap also. But we're doing it better because we're criticizing the system. We're taking it all on. So we are the superior forms here.
Yeah, no, it's there was a question about it, and then there was a follow-up question about it, and then the next person that was asked the question. I was like, "What are we doing here? what are we doing? What is wrong with our profession?" Like, I come back from a week of vacation, and I'm sitting here telling myself, like, "What? Jeez."
What is wrong with our profession? What if you had to try to come up with your top line answer? Because you seem like you might have an answer.
How much time you got?
About 23 minutes, I would say, from here on out.
28. Go 5 more.
No, that deserves like a Last Dance type 10-day documentary.
You get one episode of network television here if you'd like.
There's a lot of there's a lot of good, but it is balanced out by a lot of bad. And I'll try to make it as short as possible. What I think it really comes down to, there are just certain names in athletics, Patrick Mahomes being one of them. When they say something, it trends, for lack of a better word, because the Bleacher Report feeds, your ESPN feeds, your national feeds have made it a point to make you know that when they say something, it is important. I remember being in Oklahoma, and Trae Young was a high school student, and whenever he started getting traction, but whatever he did, people liked. Now, it wasn't anything that any other spectacular high school basketball player would do, but it was just a certain thing about him that just carried on. It had flair. When he goes to Oklahoma, his first 10 games, he's amazing. So they stuck on him, and it was just like Trae Young, and just ding, 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 and it comes up, and all of a sudden you're like, now, if you're just a general consumer who's under the age of 18 years old, you're like, well, I want to see Trae Young now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the demographic they're trying to hit. In our business, they always talk about 18 to 34, and they always talk about 18 to 54.
Mm.
So, or 34 to 54, I think, somewhere around there. But those are the demographics. That's what they want. And that's what they catch on to. So, but you always know, like, the difference between, like, a millennial, which I'm on the older end of, you're going to hold on to be like, Jordan's the best. And the younger ones are going to be like, LeBron's the best. And honestly, the younger ones might think some kid they saw on Instagram is going to be the best right now, because that's just how it works. So it's not necessarily a problem. I mean, like, Tom Brady's the same way, Patrick Mahomes is the same way, Antonio Brown's the same way, LeBron, Damian Lillard, what have you, Luka Doncic. That's why basketball is so popular on basketball and social media will lead you to believe that's a very popular sport when you look at TV and the ratings aren't great. So that's the semblance of 2 different generations. One that realizes we don't have to watch the entire game and can watch YouTube or we're perfectly content, or the highlights on Twitter, Instagram, what have you, or House of Highlights, and the other one that still wants to watch a full game.
Yeah.
So it's a difference of generations. But Patrick Mahomes, he hits all generations because football hits all generations. And when he says something, you think it's important. When in reality, it's something that any average human being likes and wants to do. Yeah.
This is a total. I'm just gonna let that sit there. I think that's really good. You also mentioned Trae Young and covering him in Oklahoma and everything, and I'm curious then how you have how you experienced his series, which it became the Trae Young series, where that dude just sort of went to Madison Square Garden and told everybody, "Hey, I'm gonna become an NBA villain for the most like rabid fan base in the sport." I was tickled to see all that. What did you think as like obviously being around him in Oklahoma for so long?
Great players make great plays in great places. I think there's a stat out there that 30 points, 3 consecutive games. Last person to do that was Michael Jordan. Now, by no means are we comparing Trae Young to Michael Jordan. At this point in his career, that's asinine to think. But at the same time, it's Michael Jordan, and you have that same list. They did something right. But great players. LeBron James has great games in Madison Square. Kevin Durant has great games. Great players love to have great games in the world's most famous arena because there's the aura of Madison Square Garden. The Knicks have stunk for a few years until this year. The Knicks still stink. You know why? Because they were playing postseason games during the regular season under Tom Thibodeau, which was the exact same thing that they did when he was the Chicago Bulls head coach. And now you see the results of that in the regular season where they were exhausted, they were outplayed. I mean, you have a three of Trae and Collins and Clint Capella, add on a guy like Bogdanovich. Well, it's a good squad. Now, they have no chance against Philadelphia if Joel Embiid's healthy. We don't know about the health of them going forward, so they might have a shot at this. But yeah, it was a mismatch for Nick Chubb, and I like the fact that it's playoff basketball.
Yeah.
You know, one of the great performers at Madison Square Garden was Reggie Miller. And, yeah, he was a villain.
Yeah.
So, he had Spike Lee going to the bathroom and then coming back, considering if he wanted to even come back out or not. So, yeah, of course. And they were tougher the whole series. They outplayed them the whole series. Even the game they lost, I mean, you could make an argument a play or two here or there, they could have swept them. So, it was a good performance. I mean, it's what you've seen out of them from. You know, I remember there was a game, and one of my colleagues from Oklahoma actually had to put it back out there for me to remember. But there was a game. He went to a high school called Norman North. They were playing Norman, which is their rival. And he hit a big three-pointer against them in the corner to take like a lead in the half. And he took a bow right in front of Norman's like section, like student section. Took a bow right in front of him, and said then basically the same thing. You know, I like to put on the show. That's what I want to do. People came to see a show. Like, he spoke like that forever.
Yeah.
It's in his DNA.
That's great. That's exactly. I was hoping you would have a story like that because it is beat for beat. He's just doing it on bigger and bigger stages. I also love because to your point about generational divides and how different generations of people consume sports differently and stories differently and Instagram clips versus all. I was surprised how tickled I was to see him be happy to invite the villainous sort of role because he's not really a villain. Like, he just played great basketball against the Knicks, but doing that and embracing that, not just being kind of the aw shucks superstar that we get, I would say the majority of the time now probably, and embracing that. Because also it's risky. Because like you said, if he gets run right out of the arena against a healthy Sixers team, we'll see about that. But all of a sudden now, Knicks fans are going to try to clown him for bowing at the end of the series. But he's always going to have the fact that he did in fact win that series to take a bow, which apparently he's been doing since high school, and I love that.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Absolutely.
I'll take more of that literally anywhere that we can get it. I did want to ask a couple things about the pressers today. I will also nominate in terms of best moments from today. Spags just roasting Pete Sweeney for his background, for not having any defensive representation.
That was pretty impressive. Well, I mean, look, I've already seen the background. I know there's the Mahomes cereal crunch.
Right.
And you've got the Mahomes book.
Yep.
And then there's probably the Mahomes sweater, Snuggie, helmet, side jersey. That's the best part about Chiefs I mean, I will say this. You know, we all try to have a little backdrop, and we got one, you know, have a Chiefs flag and a Royals flag and the Monarchs and KC at WSL, Sporting KC. But you just, when you do that, and then you're considered like a guy like, I mean, I take this in regard to, you know, I do like Pete. I definitely like Pete. I just say this in a sense of like, you have a lot of people here that just, it looks like kind of fanish. And it's like, as objective as the questions are, you still look at the background and you're like, this won't have good intentions from just the jump. I'm saying this won't have good intentions from the jump, I should say. So, no, it's fine if you have a background like that. I just know that you probably won't see that many other places.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I honestly haven't thought about that much. I just like that Spags came with heat, just for absolutely no reason. He chose violence.
Well, good for him.
Yeah,
he chose violence, and I like it.
Spags and Bieniemy today both seemed like guys who hadn't done a presser in a couple months. Like they were just sort of ready for. They were not worn down. This was not a week 9 press conference for either of them, and that makes me happy.
Yeah, no, this was not. This is not like Chiefs Bengals.
Right.
Week 16. This is like we're just waiting for the playoffs to start. Yeah, no, they're at it. They're at their jobs. I mean, the enemy goes out and fires away and talks about like we got a lot of personalities in this room. He's pumped up. He's fired up. Steve Spagnuolo, basically, you mentioned Nuggets earlier. He essentially admitted Chris Jones is going to be a defensive end in certain games, depending upon their opponent. He essentially admitted that Nick Bolton's not ready yet. But why wouldn't he be? Because he's a rookie. He essentially admitted that Legarius Sneed's going to be outside corner until they can find the actual cornerback right now.
Yep.
Which also leads me to believe that we're not done yet with free agency because Rashad Breeland's a dangling tree right now. And they're trying to find a quarterback, which, again, they have DeAndre Baker there. They have a couple other guys on the sheet. What I liked when I was witnessing practice for the few minutes I was able to witness, Steve Spagnuolo was one-on-one with Rashad Fenton and with Darius Sneed, and both of them were working from the outside. Sneed was working from what would be the right side of your offense-facing defense, and then vice versa with Rashad Fenton. And I keep forgetting, and I don't mean to forget about Rashad Fenton, but I keep forgetting that was a kid that was a late-round draft pick, which is where they like to get quarterbacks.
Yep.
And there's the development there that if he gets it right where he needs to be development-wise, he could be a guy. He's had interceptions before. I mean, he's had a game-clinching interception in the Mexico City game against the Chargers. You know, he's had plays.
Yeah.
He might be the guy who needs to step up. And at that quarterback position, which is critical because, I mean, this is the NFL. It's modern NFL. People throw the ball all the time. So it's critical. Yeah. I really do believe that individual working with him, it's going to be more and more and more.
Yeah.
This is his time to shine.
Yeah, and it's always interesting. I saw you had tweeted about Spags working one-on-one with him, and it was something that, I mean, I think about pretty frequently. It was within the first few months of Spags being in Kansas City, and I honestly do not remember who it was that I saw him working with. I think it was probably Trevarius Ward at the time. I remember like at a mini camp or something, looking over and just being like, "Who is that working with Trevarius Ward? Oh, that's Spags. He got here 5 minutes ago, and he's got guys off one-on-one working with them individually and everything." Fenton is interesting because we know he has been on the field and not been picked on, which is a bar that needs to be cleared. Like if you can clear that bar, you can stay on a roster. I would clearly love for them to end up bringing in Rashad Breeland, but I thought to what you kind of hinted at again there. We played the clip earlier, but him talking about Sneed and saying, hey, we could play him on the outside and then kick him into the slot depending on how our roster comes together. We still need to find out about Fenton and Baker and maybe Mike Hughes, and maybe they do get Breeland back, and need to figure out who our other outside guy could be to keep to keep Sneed in the slot. Like I just find Spags so refreshing in that way, because it's just like I think that they're honestly kind of trying to figure some of that stuff out right now, and he's not trying to project that they actually have some set in stone master plan.
And the biggest thing is it's OTAs. You can experiment. Now, everybody's going to talk about experimentation with offense, but there's a lot of experimentation with defense. How does this guy fit with this? And the beauty of what the Chiefs have at their disposal is, anybody they put a cornerback, they're facing a Tyreek Hill, they're facing a Byron Pringle, they're facing a McCole Harmon, they're facing like somebody, if DeMarcus Robinson, I don't think he was there today. He might have been in the background. I facing the Cornell Powell. I mean, Patrick Mahomes just straight up said he's a beast.
Yeah.
When's the last time you heard him say that about when's the last time you heard him say that about a receiver? Like, I don't think he's ever said. I mean, he's saying all the right things, but for him to go out and say he's a beast. When have you heard him say that about any other receiver on the field except like Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, I don't know that I have. I certainly don't think that we've gotten that out of because I think Mahomes would have been there for a total of 4 practices. I think they've probably had 4 practices together. That's encouraging.
Yeah. I wanted to ask Mahomes, by the way. So, how fast are you headed to Dallas for the Mavericks game tomorrow? I was like, is Luka Doncic top 5? Like, I wanted to get a conversation going, and he would be the perfect guy to say, we're mixing worlds here. We've got the video of you dapping up. Like, this man flew to L.A. after a practice, apparently.
Yes.
To get a late nighter at Staples Center. So, like, not Dallas, Staples Center. So you know darn well he's headed to Dallas. I'd be surprised if he's not. Now, he might not be courtside. He might be in the suite because he can do that type of thing. But he's got to be headed down there. But that to me, I honestly, I was listening to Patrick, and the only thing that really caught my eye was what he said about Cornell Powell, and also what he mentioned about, I was more like, what's it like being around these new guys? That's the whole goal for me today. Oh, finally, the U.S. scored. No time.
We're multifaceted. I've just seen some angry tweets is all I've seen.
A lot of angry tweets.
They finally scored on Honduras.
We also could have gotten a few more questions in that vein to Patrick Mahomes today, but we really needed 74 questions about him wanting to win football games.
Yeah, it was frustrating. It was honestly frustrating. I mean, it was one of those things where I'm sure even the people with the Chiefs were like, what is going on here? Okay, I get it. It's a talking point. But, that's where I go back to new media, traditional media, what have you. There's also the lifespan. Traditional media has a lifespan of hey, if it's getting clicks, let's hold on to this baby as much as possible.
Yeah.
And there's other people who just move on. I constitute myself as one of those people that move on, but it's still just like watching it in person. You're just like, whatever. And I mean, we get it. In Zoom world, when Patrick Mahomes is up at the podium, there's going to be 32, 33 people that are participating in this, and 17 hands are going to get raised. Andy Reid approaches the podium, we're waiting for someone to raise their hand. So I was like, sure, I'll ask the first question. I mean, you might get this opportunity. Just get them started. How was practice today, Coach? I always feel high school football coaches, back in the day when you're actually doing that for a living. When you go there on a high school game with high school practice on a Thursday, and all the coaches, well, we're excited. We expect our opponent to be real physical. They got a nice quarterback. And they're tough, so we got a challenge. And I don't know why I added the accent, but it just makes more sense for high school football coaches to sound like that.
Yeah, you nailed it.
And thank you. And but you just every time you watch, we're just like, oh no, oh my goodness. So I'm for some reason really into this soccer game. I have no reason why.
Give me. I mean, I don't think legally you may not be able to give us play-by-play, but give me whatever you've seen so far. Go ahead. Let's give it. You know what this show hasn't had a lot of lately? Soccer talk. Give me. How you said Honduras?
Yes.
Yes, and Estados Unidos. So I have AT&T. Here's another AT&T problem. I have AT&T, but I don't get the English-speaking channel of this broadcast. So I'm watching it on Univision. On mute, obviously, because I'm talking to you. But honestly, it's just as good as whatever the American broadcasters do.
Yeah.
That's my takeaway from it. I get to the point where, one of the best experiences of my youth was watching Jamaica versus Japan on Univision. Because they had no clue who was on any of those teams. You could tell even I don't know much Spanish, but you could tell they had no clue what was going on, where Jamaica was, where Japan was. They were just like, this is a World Cup game. It's on the contract. It's also 3 a.m. because this darn thing is being played in South Korea. Back to you. Like that. But yeah, no, it's the home team is winning now. I guess that's what we can legally say.
Rudy, you seem like you had something on either Spanish soccer broadcast or soccer in general.
Univision is like great. Their announcers are fantastic. Like it makes, especially games that maybe you don't have like much of an interest, or like a rooting interest in, it just makes them that much more entertaining.
Yeah,
they're really good. They're they are incredible at what they do.
Yeah, and the best part about watching Univision is, like in this particular case, the Mexico national team is about to play after this.
Oh wow!
And all they've been doing is going to like the tailgate scene. Like they're like, forget this Honduras USA game. We're gonna go to like a tailgate of some Mexico team fans and just interview them and do a double box basically with the game on the side. You have no idea what's going on, but they're just like, this guy's excited because he's interviewing this gentleman who's decided to paint his face green, white, and red, and get after it. So, hey, all for it. Go team.
Are you generally very interested in like the U.S. national soccer teams, or is this just it's on your screen right now and you cannot avert your eyes?
Well, it's toward the end, and so it was kind of one of those things where it was just like, I didn't want to avert, and the Royals are still in the middle of their game, and the NBA game is still at halftime-ish. So I was like, I'll watch the video. Another thing about the NBA, they don't do themselves a service with their ratings because, like, it's hard to watch the first half.
Go ahead.
Because like, if it's a 15-point halftime lead, whoever's winning, the game's still, like, it's not over.
Right.
Like, they can come back from 15 points in, like, 3 minutes. So, they don't do themselves a service in that category.
As a resident Suns fan here, I was going to say that halftime of Game 5, the Suns were up by, like, 30. And I was still a little nervous. I was still a little bit worried about that second half.
Well, it's like you get like a 10-0 run eventually, and then sometimes you get down to 16. It's like, do they fold? Do they not fold? I mean, I watched Memphis, Utah, and that game was over at halftime because Donovan Mitchell was hitting shots blind with 7-footers in front of him, and it was like 71 to like 45 at the half. Something awful. Like maybe it was worse. And you're like, okay, this we can safely say is over. But yeah, there are some games. I mean, I'm really curious about your Suns tonight.
Me too.
That to me, that's going to be good TV because, there's certain NBA playoff games you want to watch from the beginning. You're like, I want to see this develop. I want to see how this. And then the report now from multiple NBA reports now that say that Anthony Davis is going to give it a go. I mean, just like 20-0. Newsflash: player on the team that might be the best player wants to try to play. It's an elimination game.
Yep.
Get that.
Yep.
Yep. If you get 12 minutes out of them, that's going to be 12 more minutes. If they lose, then you don't get no minutes. So, like, but everybody makes it a big deal. Like, I don't want to sound old man at yells at clown. I really don't. I don't want to go Abe Simpson to everybody. But there are certain things that we just need common sense. It's just some sense needs to be exercised on a lot of folks. And it just really does.
Just don't hold your breath, all right? Just promise me you're not going to hold your breath waiting for that, because I don't want you passing out on the radio. Because I think it could be a minute. I'm a little bit nervous about this game tonight because LeBron up against elimination it's a bit of a tiger backed up into a corner of a cage. If I'm in the cage still, I'm still more nervous about that tiger than anything else, even though I got a little space between me and the tiger and the door. I'm a little bit worried about that, but also LeBron did not look great in Game 5, and I have no idea how much Anthony Davis is going to be able to play tonight. But I can tell you this, dear listeners, You can listen to it right here on Sports Radio 810 in an hour. Tips off in an hour right here on these very airwaves.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Cross promotion.
No, I mean, look, I like LeBron James. I mean, he gets like some people think I give him a hard time. I've given him a hard time before. No, and a lot of that is because when you live in Oklahoma forever and he's still like the guy that's seen as the one that the Thunder couldn't get the title. Like, no, you traded James Harden. That's why they didn't get the title. But he's the best player of this generation by far. But dude, like, and I think one of the best correlations about this is Serena Williams. When you watch her play tennis, she gets through the first round, she gets through the second, third, But when she gets to that, when it gets to the business end, when you get to the final 8, the final 4, then you realize the gear is not there. And like that's what I want to see. I want to see if James has the gear. Like I think the last game was he gave up in the second half. He's like, I got to keep my gear for 6 and 7.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, I mean, like, there's only been so many series where he's been completely helpless. Which one was the infamous Spurs series when Rudy Gibson and Zydrunas Ilgauskas and Anderson Varejao were a starting 5 in the league back in the late 2000s. And of course, when they lost to Golden State, when he was a member of the Cleveland not too long ago, when they got swept by Curry and Durant and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson and all those people. So it's something, man. NBA's fascinating. It's fascinating because it just there's so many storylines, but at the same time you end up getting like the same final chapter. If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that really bums me out that we don't have a team in Kansas City, because I know for a fact that there is someone somewhere listening to this show right now who just went, "Oh, you guys think the NBA is fascinating? Well, I don't see why it's so fascinating. Nobody plays defense." But the people that are, I think the people generally who are saying that are people who have not had a reason to care about an NBA team. And as soon as you care about meaningful NBA basketball, man, it is an incredibly interesting product.
You know who plays defense? The New York Knicks. What are the Knicks doing right now?
I believe they're at home. I believe they're watching reruns of Trae Young's play that he put on his one-man show.
Yeah, the Knicks play hard. They play aggressive. They play defense. That's what they do. And if you're smart enough about the NBA, you would know that the rules are so gravitated toward the offense.
Yep.
The reason being is because 10 years ago, if you look at any clips, look at 10 years ago, and the final was the Heat versus the Mavericks. You hear the Mavericks beat the Heat. The first year they had the Eagles. 5 of the 6 games, I believe, in the final series were all double-digit final scores. Only one game was like over 100, both teams. And they said, we got to change this because, well, it's getting boring, the product's getting boring. But, and 3 years before that, you can go back to when the Pistons were playing, and games were like 72-67 with like the final possession.
And also,
they changed the rules.
Also, anyone who watched Game 5 of Blazers Nuggets, you may have noticed, even at the very end, there was some pretty eye defense being played, and Damian Lillard just hits every shot. Like they're just really good at shooting the basketball. It's just that's how that happens, and it's incredible to watch.
The shot he made, the force, I can't remember if it was overtime or double overtime, but the shot he made,
which is perfect, by the way. That's a perfect summary.
Exactly. So, hold it. Hey, you couldn't defend the shot better, and right in your eyes. So you just golf clap and you tip your cap, and you're just like, okay, great shot. But it's the NBA, man. Again, you have to be invested in it, and living in Oklahoma and seeing the Thunder crowds. I mean, there are some crowds. I will never forget the day when Kevin Durant returned to Oklahoma City for his first game. That was a crowd that I'm not even. I do not joke around with you. If they were allowed weaponry in that building, there would be lawsuits. there would be charges. I'm surprised they let them get out of it. I really am. I met. I'll leave you this. I know you know.
Yeah.
I met a father who dressed up as a cupcake. And I interviewed him. A father who dressed up as a cupcake. And he had a little son who was dressed up in a cupcake. Handmade cupcake suits. Handmade. And he's like, well, I was really ticked off, so I got my wife to sew together some patches of fabric, and we got some cupcakes. Like, he's a cupcake, and he doesn't deserve to be here. He doesn't want to be here. I'm like, well, one, yeah, you're right. He doesn't want to be here. But two, let me get that. You forced your wife to have you and your child. How old is your child? And the child's like 7. Okay, how old? Your child's 7 years old. He or she, because I can't tell, because you got a cupcake mask on.
Because it's just a cupcake.
You have a cupcake mask on. He or she has no real idea of what is going on. Why I do not like this person? Why is my dad dressed up like a cupcake today? There's a lot going on here. And it's like somebody came from Australia just to make sure they were booing Kevin Durant. I was like, you got on a plane from Sydney to Oklahoma City, one of the hardest places to find. And from Australia, and you said, I would have come here to make sure I boo this man. In person. You had a family with cupcakes.
Why is my dad dressed up as a cupcake? It's just an incredible thought that child is going to carry with themselves for the rest of their lives. They were 7.
Yeah, like, they're going to see pictures of this.
Yes.
And they're going to be like, what happened that day? And then dad's going to explain to them the story about how they haven't grown up enough to realize that people might want to leave a city that they don't like. And it's, like I said, the NBA. It is the perfect example of making all the non-important things in life important. And you know how it is. Because we all know how this is going to end. Brooklyn's going to win a championship. Anyway, back to you.
Well, I mean, listen. Once the Suns and Nets get there, we can talk about it again. But we'll cross that bridge whenever we get there. We got
It always ends up being the team with the most talent. Yeah.
Listen. I'm just, and at that point, it's gonna go 7, and then we'll see who makes that last shot. Is it gonna be Kyrie, James Harden, Kevin Durant, Cameron Payne? Who's to say? It's just a lot of all-star caliber players, a lot of future Hall of Famers in my book.
Yeah. No. Good luck tonight, Josh.
Thank you, Harold. We'll talk to you again soon. And at some point, I would just like a Rolodex of your Oklahoma-based stories. We could probably do an entire segment about that game and Durant's return. So that might be in the cards for next time, and we'll talk to you hopefully sooner rather than later.
All right, Josh. Thanks, man.
Harold Kuntz of Fox4. Follow him on Twitter at HaroldRKuntz3, and watch him on Fox4 here in Kansas City. I like talking to Harold, and I love the idea of a 7-year-old and their dad dressed up as cupcakes for the return of Kevin Durant in Oklahoma City.
What more could you want?
My dad and I weren't even Thunder fans. I have no idea why he insisted on wearing those.
Did you know you can listen to Almost Entirely Sports anywhere, anytime? Well, you can. Just search for Almost Entirely Sports wherever you get your podcasts. You're listening to Almost Entirely Sports
Beards McFly, the sound-finding guy.
with Joshua Brisco
Beards.
on ESPN Kansas City.
Thanks again to Harold Kuntz of Fox4 for joining us. Always a pleasure to talk to Harold. Let's do a quick check-in here on resident Denver Nuggets fan Rudy Salazar. The Nuggets are currently down.
Game's over.
89-77, 6 minutes left in the third quarter. How are you feeling, Rudy?
I mean, the game's over. Nuggets aren't winning this game.
They're about halfway through the third quarter right now. I will
Portland's going to get 140 points, and they're not going to have to go to overtime to do it.
Beards and I can remind everyone of this, but I believe the Nuggets were up 2 in the fourth quarter of Game 5, and you declared it a loss when they were up 2 in the fourth quarter.
We have, text evidence of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel
stand by
like
what I said.
I mean, I feel like
This is different. Like,
well, Michael Porter Jr. went off in the first quarter, right? What's he doing now? What did he do in the first quarter?
22 points.
Wow. So is he gonna go for 80?
No.
What's he done since the first quarter?
4 points.
Oh wow, that's not
The Nugget,
not ideal, I guess.
Paul Millsap just decided I'm gonna come in and shoot threes, and JaMychal Green just decided I'm gonna shoot threes, and Monte Morris is 2 for 8, and it's just like they just decided we're not gonna let Michael Porter Jr. shoot the ball anymore. Now Portland didn't decide that; the Nuggets decided that.
By the way, Josh, I have some more breaking news for the Suns game.
Also, one of those buckets was a Michael Porter Jr. getting
Rudy,
a stealing the ball. I really don't. Stealing the ball from Damian Lillard for a dunk. So, he has to play defense to get a shot. What are we doing, Denver? The game's over. Game's over. We're not winning this game. We're going to Game 7. The Nuggets will lose.
Marcus All is starting instead of Andre Drummond.
I did see that. I'm more worried about that than I am Anthony Davis and his little groin playing, I think.
Little groin.
I don't like Marc Gasol being on the floor. It makes me nervous.
Damian Lillard has set the record for most threes in a playoff series, and it's only halftime of Game 6.
I was going to read that, but we're now in the third quarter. Yeah.
It's because it's not. He didn't. It's not halftime currently. Beards.
It's past halftime.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out, Rudy is so distressed about this game, and you were so quick to get there that you totally glossed over the fact that I accidentally played a line of that ESPN Kansas City at the end of it.
I mean, you didn't have to say anything, Beards. We
I know.
never would have known. I'm really not that distressed because I've just accepted they're gonna lose. I don't know what can you do about it?
This show's we've got a really weird energy tonight.
I'm fine.
Which might be the weirdest part of it.
Yeah, I mean that you being fine is a weird energy, Beards.
Yeah, Beards is over here just snorting pixie sticks during the break. And I realized today that I can no longer tell the difference between a lack of caffeine headache and a too much caffeine headache.
Same. Oh my God, the same.
That I realized today. Also, by the way,
I've known this for a while for me, for maybe a month now, but yeah, same.
My day this morning, yesterday I came in and talked about how I was at the Jackson County Courthouse for way too long.
Oh, you had to go DMV today, correct?
So, just quick clarification. I was at the courthouse to do a proper tax thing, because when you buy a car on the Kansas side and you take it to the Missouri side, you got to do all that.
Yeah,
and I didn't know any of
Josh
this.
committed a crime. He went to the courthouse.
I broke into Brett Veach's house and I just left him a note. I didn't do anything. I just left him a note that said, "Signed Bashad Breland." And then I left.
He wrote his Twitter handle on the note, which that was the problem.
I said, "Call me."
He would have gotten away with it
if
it wasn't for those pesky kids.
It really, I really could have left. I could have handled that a whole lot better. That's why I was at the courthouse. It was for I just a car. Yeah. I had to get basically a receipt. I'm still not totally sure how it worked. I literally was there for 3 hours and I left with one piece of paper, and it let me go to the DMV today, and I got my Missouri plates for my car. And it is front and back, by the way. I know that now for sure. And it all went relatively well, but I got up at the, crack of DMV and hopped in line on the app and everything. Again, it all went fine. It was a relatively painless experience. But my day started with an earlier than usual morning, given the fact that our show ends at 10 p.m. most nights. And then it started by sitting in a DMV for a little while. And that was how my day began. I didn't have breakfast or coffee, and that's how my day started.
The DMV when I was living in Kentucky, just the smoothness of which it operated every time I had to go was just unbelievable.
Really?
It
wow.
blew my mind how I got Funny thing was, I lost my driver's license the first day I moved to Kentucky. I was like, oh, that's not great.
They just took it from you?
No, I just lost it. I don't know what happened.
You legally lost it.
I lost it. Well, here's the thing. I think just me losing it is funnier than them. Like the first day I'm there,
Day one is brutal.
Day one, and it's like I'm not going back to Kansas for a while. I finally got a Kentucky driver's license. So I lost my driver's license the first day I moved to Kentucky, which was in August. I think finally by like March, I decided to go get a new driver's license. So I went I spent 7 months using my passport as my ID for everything.
I need to get a passport still.
But so finally I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna finally get a driver's license, because if I get pulled over, I should probably have a driver's license. That might be good.
It would be a good thing to have for sure, yeah.
And so like I go into the DMV, and they're like, hey, I'm expecting things to go just like how it goes in Kansas. And like I get my picture. They're like, okay, hey, sit down. And I was in line for maybe 10 minutes waiting to get my picture taken. Like, okay, sit down for a few minutes. I'm like, okay. They call me up. I just assumed there was like a receipt for me. No, they had the driver's license there ready to go. It was just ready in 3 minutes. I have to wait like 6 weeks here.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Why doesn't every state do this?
I don't know.
It was mind blowing me.
You guys want to hear a great tweet?
Yeah. Oh, I see it.
Whenever I say that, I want you, Beard, stop looking at Twitter. I'm gonna read it.
Read it.
A tweet from @WorldsOfFun, verified Worlds of Fun Twitter account.
Yeah.
They tweeted, "Smile. You could be in St. Louis."
Sheesh. Woo. That is a great tweet.
That is
like great
violent.
Tweet.
Holy smokes.
Good. I like that tweet. Not your tweet, but the World's a Fun tweet. That's a good tweet. I like your tweet too.
I don't,
The sheesh is a good response.
Thank you. We need something to end the segment on, and Beards, I don't want it to just be you telling me to break again. Like we've got 17 clocks in here. Like I know.
So in
Half of them are
Kentucky,
wrong.
Yeah, I got the one that works over there.
when my first day when I lost my driver's license, I actually still had my paper's license, and like I happened to actually go to a liquor store, and they thought it was fake, and like I had to like convince like, no, this is a real thing. I swear I didn't just print this off my computer. This is an actual official government license. They eventually believed me. Then I started taking my passport.
I might need to go home
like a deviant.
I might need to go home early, actually. At least I might need to go to a doctor.
Why's that?
Because that story, it was so funny that I busted my gut.
Sheesh.
I busted my gut wide open.
Bad case of the sheeshes.
Oh, bad case of the radio show. Just a bad radio show,
I mean, you just need something.
I wanted to take a break after said bad radio show, and Beards was too busy marking it, and so he didn't actually go to break. Now, Beards, whose fault was that one?
Take the show with you wherever you go. Listen live on the Sports Radio 810 mobile app and 810WHB.com. This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
Hey, Google. Text Beards and tell him that we need to take a break.
These are the top results.
Damn it.
On Sports Radio 810 WHB.
A reminder, we've got different programming tonight than usual because we have the Phoenix Suns as they will eliminate LeBron and the Los Angeles Lakers and win the series in 6 games, finishing it off in LA tonight. That coverage of that game begins tonight here on Sports Radio 810 WHB in 30 minutes from now. Now, if they lose the game tonight, which they won't, then it'll be even better because they'll get to win it in front of the home crowd.
True.
So, really, it's a win-win.
That's what Denver's doing.
That's right. See, this isn't... Yeah. By the way, Rudy, it's a 6-point game now.
It's over, Josh.
It's a 4-point game. Nope, it's 6, but Jokic is about to shoot a couple free throws.
They're not winning this, okay?
It's a 4-point game. This game's going to be tied by the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Fine.
You know what you are, Rudy? You're afraid to feel. You're afraid to be in touch with your emotions.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said because
you're afraid to get hurt by Beards.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 This is Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco.
You're our number one option, Scott. Thank you for being here. Sorry for prying you away from among us. Go lie to your friends, and hopefully I'll have a chance to be once again absolutely massacred by you in that game at some point soon.
I wouldn't call us friends, but certainly colleagues. Thanks, Josh.
On Sports Radio 810, WHB.
We're 30 minutes away from tip-off of Suns-Lakers here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. I believe that was the end of the third quarter just now for Nuggets-Blazers. How did that wrap up there, Rudy?
Monte Morris hit a running three to make it a 3-point game.
Still over?
It's over.
Yeah, okay. We'll talk about all of the things going on right now in the NBA. We might get a KU question just because there's something interesting happening with KU football right now. But I'm not going to overpromise and underdeliver with Scott Chasen of Fog.net, 24/7 Sports, all that good stuff. You can follow him on Twitter at ChasenScott. You want KU coverage, you go to Fog.net or Kansas.247sports.com. Scott, as a fellow Suns fan right now, we got the starting lineup for the Lakers. Anthony Davis is playing. Marc Gasol is starting with LeBron, KCP, and Dennis Schroeder. How are you feeling right now?
I feel good because I've mostly put the game out of my head. About the game itself, I'm a Suns fan, you're a Suns fan. I think we both know that playoffs have not been a thing since 2010, and even then, that was a pretty magical run because they swept the Spurs, and it just kept, it felt like something's going to go wrong at some point, and it did. The Suns tied a Game 5 against the Lakers in L.A. It was 2-2. They hit the game-tying three, had all the momentum. Kobe Bryant airballs, a potential game winner, and Ron Artest or Metta World Peace, whatever he was at the time, rebounds the airball, puts it in, and, if that wasn't the series ender, it wasn't technically, but it sure sucked the life out of the building. And I feel very similarly about this game almost in a reverse sense, that you don't want to go to Game 7 against LeBron James. You probably don't want to go to Game 6 against LeBron James either. I recall LeBron being down 3-2 to the Boston Celtics when I believe he was with the Heat. I could be wrong, and it could be the Cavs when he had 45, 15, and 9.
No, it was the Heat, Scott. It was the
Heat. 45, 15, and 9. I remember that one vividly. I was a LeBron fan then, and now he plays for the other team. So not a fan of that as much. So, anyway, nervous. If it gets to a Game 7, I fully expect the NBA to send in Scott Foster, whatever he's doing. I'm sure they'll make sure to get him in there. And one of my friends texted me today and said Scott Foster was officiating, and I was despondent until I found out that person was wrong. But, I expect that for Game 7, too.
Sorry, I keep saying Game 7 like that's a thing that's going to happen, and I just simply don't understand what you're referring to.
Yeah. Well, hey, it felt good to watch Game 5 and just how dominant the Suns were. Before the Chris Paul injury, I was telling my roommate who I was watching with, I said, I think this is the best game I've ever seen in my life. They were just destroying them. And it's funny, too, because, we're Suns fans. So for people who don't know, the second half happens. The Suns, I think they're up by as many as 35. And I want to say the Lakers cut it to 30. And immediately I look at the clock and I'm like, oh no, how much time is left? It's early second half, whatever. Same thing. They cut it to like 26 or something. Cam Johnson answers with a three, and it was just like, okay, like that was a big shot. And it was like, no, it wasn't. They were up by 26 or whatever. But that's what being a Suns fan is like. It's like you're always facing Patrick Mahomes, and it's like the first quarter. So fun game though. And look, the Suns look great. I am a little nervous though, and this will sound like a crazy thing to say. I promise. I've been a fan of the NBA for a long time. I have great respect for LeBron James, who's one of my favorite players to watch ever. But at this stage in his career, he's not better than Anthony Davis. And he's largely avoided criticism in the series, but he's been pretty mediocre. And, people jump. In the NBA, I think the most common thing people do is they love to look at your fourth and fifth starters and like fourth and fifth bench guys and say that's where, this guy's great value or this guy's a great fourth starter and Patrick Beverley this. But so much of basketball is about the stars, and LeBron started inaccurate. He's been inaccurate. He hasn't shot it well from the floor. When he passes, it shows a lack of feel, in my opinion. It looks like there are times where he just says, you guys do it, and he'll just pass 8 possessions in a row, and guys are missing, and it's like, no, this is where your star says, I'm going to take over the game now, and he just hasn't seemed to have that gear. So I think the injury is affecting him. probably more than we realize at this point. But yeah, I mean, he's got to play so much better. And anything they get from Anthony Davis will be a lift too.
That's all incredibly reasonable LeBron analysis, and I would like to have some unreasonable LeBron analysis for a second, because here's where I've ended up. For literally as long as I can remember, I have publicly made the point that I think LeBron haters are some of the weirdest people in sports fandom, where you say, boy, this guy, he is simply so incredible at the sport of basketball that the only opponent I can put up against him is the ghost of Michael Jordan, and also I hate him because he's so dominant. And I always just thought that was a very corny and probably just a kind of miserable way to go about being an NBA fan. And then this series happened. And I understand all of it all at once. Because being great in a vacuum is relatively easy to appreciate. I never really had any super hard feelings against the super team Warriors either. It wasn't the best thing in the world, I guess, for competitiveness, but damn, it was good for a villain and for the sport having an incredible storyline to follow and all that stuff. The Nets in a similar space, right? But whenever it's that sort of thing against the team that you actually care about, I have become a much more irrational fan in these last 2 weeks. I have found myself feeling things in terms of irrational fandom that I did not know I still had within me.
Yeah, look, I mean, especially when you work in sports, I think it takes some of it out of you to varying degrees about different things. Obviously, when someone makes a crazy play or a crazy throw, whatever, you still get excited, but yeah, I mean, it's a different kind of fandom going up against the guy is that good, and it's also a lot easier when, like I said, he isn't playing as well, and you can see, he stays down on the court complaining about a foul. You texted me about this, and I believe I texted my group chat about this, where he's complaining about a foul the other way the Suns go and get a dunk, and it's like, ha, take that, LeBron,
yes.
You stupid person who, is worth $1 billion. But,
yes.
I mean, that's what it is, though, right? And look, the other reason that we come at it from a different perspective is because we've been fans of a Western Conference team that hasn't made the playoffs in a decade. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, you can still dislike players and teams and stuff. The same with the Warriors. But it's not like it was Warriors' Suns.
Right.
My disdain for the Warriors now comes because they're, 12th best scorer decided to go on TNT last year and say Devin Booker should demand a trade, and then he missed the playoffs. It's funny. When he's been back on TNT, they haven't brought that up. I actually love Draymond Green, just to be clear. So I'm just joking. But that's me. I get to be a fan.
You're right, exactly. You are joking, and you love Draymond Green, and also he said that, and you hate it. It's all true. It's all true all at once.
Multitudes. It is so true. But no, the playoffs have been outstanding because there are a bunch of injuries which are unfortunate and have taken away from a lot of really good teams that could be special. But, I mean, you're just seeing such high-level basketball, and to see it in front of crowds again, I mean, it's so awesome. I know crowds are doing, vaccinated sections where you can pack in. You just have to show proof of that, and I love that idea for sports. I think that's amazing. And, yeah, I mean, it just feels so cool to have crowds and atmosphere and everything coming back at the same time. So, yeah, the NBA playoffs, I'm trying to remember what it was like in 2010. And in 2010, the Spurs series was kind of nerves a little bit, but once the Suns had control of the series, it was less of a worry. I would say Game 5 of the Lakers against the Lakers back in 2010, and a little bit of Game 6 were the most fun I've ever had watching basketball until this postseason. But I'm also 26, so some of the earlier Suns runs I don't necessarily remember as well.
Yep,
I obviously remember them losing to a lot of Western Conference teams and being upset about that, but experiencing it now as an adult, really for the first time, it's been a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it really has. That's been the other thing about it, that it honestly, it's also made me feel a little bit differently about people who just relatively neutrally, not necessarily with venom, but just are kind of neutrally not really particularly intrigued by the NBA or aren't big NBA fans. It makes me just kind of bummed out for all of those people, because I think whenever you have meaningful basketball being played by a team that you are emotionally invested in, it has reminded me that it's not just a great product, but it's also incredibly fun. Like, and it's just, it's harder for it to be fun if you're watching not having a team. So I kind of feel bad for a lot of people in the Kansas City area right now who are not thrilled that we're talking about the NBA because they don't really live and die with whatever Damian Lillard is going to do to Rudy's Nuggets here in a few minutes.
Yeah, and there are two kinds of NBA fans, right? Like, they're the kind that root for the player. And in my experience, usually it's a player that gets you into the game and then the team that keeps you. You know, for me, it was watching Steve Nash. He was always my favorite player, had jersey, go to games, whatever. Yeah. And when Steve Nash got traded to the Lakers, it was like decision time. Am I going to root for the Lakers? The Suns are now rebuilding, or am I going to stay with the Suns? And I kind of rooted for Nash with the Lakers, whatever. And then they had one game against the Suns, and it was immediately like, oh, no, I'm rooting for the Suns. Like, forget this guy. Who is he again?
Yeah.
And so I think for a lot of people, and especially in this market, like if they get into it, it's because they like a player and then they associate with a team. What kind of sucks is like the NBA's blackout policy can make games difficult to watch, especially for local teams, depending on your cable setup and situation. So like there are relatively nearby teams, Denver, Oklahoma City. Obviously, Oklahoma City isn't in the playoffs. But like to me, that's such a great opportunity to have this access to it. And obviously, look, it'd be awesome if Kansas City got an NBA team. But, I wish those teams would, someone play a few regular season games in Kansas City, a little home away from home, connect this, kind of missing part of the country because the NBA is unique for player development, I think. Individual players growing in growth more so than probably any other sport. Like, guys get better, obviously. Patrick Mahomes has improved tremendously. Whit Merrifield has improved, an insane amount over his career. But NBA rosters can be dramatically different year over year with a lot of the same pieces, or you get the right puzzle piece in and it so directly affects every other guy on the roster. Whereas a lot of times, NFL teams carry the same identity, baseball teams, they have this, they need this, they have to address this. Whereas in basketball, and people, college basketball, people know this, you add a great point guard, now you're getting the most out of your center. Now, your defense might be connected in a different way and stuff like that. And so the team building aspect of it from that perspective, I think it's probably most comparable to baseball maybe when you build through like minor leaguers and stuff like that. But even then you don't get that, having Eric Hosmer doesn't make Mike Moustakas a better player. Yeah. It's not as connected. So I think that's the unique thing that the NBA offers that, at the very least, that's why I fell in love with it.
Well, yeah, and also the player development thing is so interesting because, like, I think the example on the NFL side for this, and Patrick Mahomes ended up being an example of this. For whatever reason, I think of Josh Allen the most, of people thinking that, like, hey, he will be a better NFL player than college player. And you can say that, and it was true for Josh Allen. You can say that for Patrick Mahomes, and it became true for Patrick Mahomes. But there are way more guys who that was not true for, and the NBA actually has that happen all the time, especially even for guys that end up being lottery picks. If your lottery pick, whoever it is fully formed out of college or out of out of Europe or the G League or whatever. If your pick is a guy that does not continue developing in a major way, who doesn't look very different in his third year than his rookie year, he's not going to end up being the impact player you thought he was going to be. And for a city that loves college basketball as much as this one does, that I think that's something that I wish more people had their eyes open to.
Yeah, well, think about it like this. In the NBA, all the time you'll draft a guy in the first round who averaged 6, 7, 8 points a game because you're projecting that he could have this, all-star skill set or whatever. In the NFL, so often the draft is about, well, how soon can they play? This guy's ready to go day one. Whereas that is true sometimes at the top of the draft. You want superstars. You want guys who can step in and play. But like you said, it's never about the first contract. It's always about the second one. What are you going to do 5 years from now? Yeah. With quarterbacks, at least, it can be the opposite, right? It can be, what can you do in the first 5 years when you've got this quarterback for cheap? And then the salary cap also. The NBA is so star-based now because teams have figured out the quickest way to circumvent that building process is to land a superstar. But that only applies to, again, how many markets, right? Like LA can land stars, but for a while they didn't. And for a while they were really, really bad because they weren't landing stars. Same with New York. A lot of times it just comes down to, do you have good management? Do you have smart people? You can get it wrong in the draft over and over. The Suns are a great example of that. Hit a few times, develop your pieces, add the right complementary guys around him and grow a unit together. And then, you're one move away from making the jump to being second in the West. So, in some perspectives with football, it's similar because you trade for a great quarterback and, obviously that can elevate all your pieces or you sign someone like that. But, again, I just think it's such a different way of building a team, especially because the rosters are so tiny.
Yeah.
You may play legitimately 7-8 guys in a game and feel like those are all your good players who got on the floor. So it's something I think the NBA playoffs and having fans back have made it's made it really easy to enjoy and remember why they're so good. And also, you get something unique with Inside the NBA on TNT. Not always the best show for, in-depth analysis, detail, whatever, and sometimes they get things flat out wrong. But, it's the best blend of personalities of any network show surrounding sports on television, and it is genuinely hilarious to watch, and it is very enjoyable when your team is the one that wins.
Yes, and I wouldn't know what it's like whenever your team doesn't win because I've never made it there.
100%.
I have a couple of questions specifically about this game/series here. One, you mentioned that Game 5 was the most fun you've had watching NBA basketball in like a decade. And then Chris Paul got hit by a stiff breeze, and I thought he was perishing in front of our eyes. It sounds like it's more of like a neck sort of nerve thing, more so than like the dislocated shoulder that popped back in, which is sort of what my expectation understanding was whenever the original injury happened. What's your level of concern right now on Chris Paul, who apparently did all of his usual warm-up stuff today, if you believe I don't know if it was Monty Williams or somebody with the Suns, but I saw that tweet pop up earlier.
Yeah, well, I spoke to Chris today. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, look, I've been following and refreshing Twitter like just about everyone else. Same with, the Anthony Davis thing. It's not unrelated. They're very similar, obviously different injuries, but similar circumstances, which is, this series has been an arms race to see who can get healthy the fastest. And the thing about Chris Paul and I think probably covering Bill Self and KU basketball has made me a little smarter about this. It's not necessarily that Bill Self hates three-point shooting, but it's that he prefers his teams find ways to win, creating easy baskets and preventing them. And then the things on top of that are just what you're building from there. And I think Chris Paul has discovered he can't shoot threes. I know he made one in the last game. It was the first one he's made since the injury. He tried to shoot a half-court shot. He had to shoot it underhanded because he couldn't get it there.
I think he's done it twice now. It makes me so sad every time. It's like it's the Marley in me of a sports minute. Like I'm just in tears.
Yeah. So he's had to find different ways because this is this all-world great player who's been amazing for, well over a decade. And now he has to, my body doesn't work anymore. How do I win? And so for him, I think it, at first it was getting comfortable with his jumper, figuring out the spots. It seems like 10 to 14 feet. That's about the extent of his range where he's going to be really effective. Then it seemed like he was taking some stuff personally. Guys would pressure him, and he kind of wanted to embarrass them with his dribble. He also didn't want to be giving up the ball. Like early in the series, he just wasn't running point guard. So he was just being almost a wasted player sitting in the corner who can't really shoot. And like Cameron Payne or Devin Booker or someone else would go get the ball. And now he's kind of added that and growing in comfort. So I think you're seeing him get healthier and healthier in real time. The question to me is, does that stop at some point? If the Suns win this game, and I don't know the score of the Portland game, so you might break some bad news to me, and Portland wins, the Suns will get some days off, right? Like they'll get time to recoup and recover, and that could be huge for him. But on the flip side, the Suns have had, I believe, of every playoff series, the fewest number of games off. There might be one other tied with them, but other series have had 2 days between games regularly. The series with the 2 and the 7 started the latest of any series because of how the play-in tournament worked. So they haven't had as many days, and I think that's also affected things. So it's just interesting to see how a Hall of Fame athlete recovers from an injury in the playoffs, and as he adds more and more to his game, how I guess smart he can be about it and how he can change the way he plays.
Blazers Nuggets is tied right now, by the way. Again, we could not stress this enough that Rudy declared this game over with 6 minutes left in the third quarter.
It's over.
It's currently tied with 6 minutes left in the game. The Nuggets are now up 2 with 6 minutes left in the game.
They're not winning.
Rudy will be relieved to know that Rudy would much rather play the Nuggets than the Blazers, despite the Blazers being decidedly and significantly worse than the Nuggets.
I read this text on air yesterday. I'm going to say this again now. I understand what you're saying. I understand that the Blazers... I don't think I said that you were the person I was texting with this. I was protecting your identity, but now we're here.
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. You've told me the Blazers decidedly worse than the Nuggets. This is a worse team that cannot play defense and has exactly one player. And I know that. And also I know that Pennywise the Clown is not actually real. He's not actually going to jump out of the sewer.
We don't know
but
that.
I'm still afraid of him, and I'm still afraid of Lillard, and I cannot apologize for that.
Yeah, well, the first time, there was, oh no, I don't know what this is from. So I saw this on TikTok. Maybe someone can Google this and help me out.
Gotcha.
There's like a meme where someone tries to create sentences that have never been said before, and it comes from something. I have no idea what, but it was on TikTok. I saw a TikTok of this.
There's a subreddit called Brand New Sentences that I've subscribed to for a while. So
okay, so maybe it comes from there. What you just did, comparing Pennywise to Damian Lillard, I think that qualifies as a brand new sentence.
We have done that. We have a good number of those here, I think. I think there's an entire liner that basically exists of one of those moments. That, sometimes you got currently. Rudy just did a little happy dance because the Nuggets are up 4 now.
See, I'm not at that part. I just saw Nurkic make, honestly, it was a beautiful move on Jokic, a spin move, and then he just lost the ball and went out of bounds. I was like,
The disrespect by Josh Brisco to Jokic is like, they're one of the teams in this series has this all-world unstoppable player. Oh, by the way, the other team has the MVP of the NBA.
Scott, I've been dealing with this for almost 2 years now of Josh and Beards calling Jokic the 7th best player out of Serbia.
Sixth.
But
He's
now
the 6th best player of the
they have
Serbian
now
national team.
promoted him to the 6th
No, he's
best
always
player.
been the 6th.
No. It was 7th for the longest time. You guys promoted him to 6th this year because he was playing well.
No. He is exactly what he's been the entire time.
Okay, it was 7.
Okay, then he's still 7.
See, I've been dealing with this for a long time.
Yeah, well, in fairness, he's a meatball sub away from being Snorlax from Pokemon, but
hey,
I mean,
that is what the peak male body looks like. If you don't want to accept that, that's fine. If that scares you, that is fine.
Scott, I think he might just be a meatball sub from Subway.
I mean, I've been doing disrespecting Jokic for. It doesn't even bother me anymore.
That's also a brand new sentence there, Scott. You also definitely got
one.
That's
probably true.
Nikola Jokic is a Subway meatball sub away from becoming Snorlax is a real winner. We got a minute left in the show because we got to get to the actual game here. What's going to happen tonight, Scott? Tell me something good. Give me good news, Scott.
Oh, no. Well, 2 teams are going to play basketball, and the one with the star player who's injured, who plays better, is going to win, and then Scott Foster is going to get a phone call about working Game 7.
Let's go Nuggets.
Wait, what's the point? Game 7 for Nuggets Blazers, you mean? I don't understand. Game 7.
Yeah, Blazers coming back.
There's not going to be a Game 7, Scott.
Give me Suns by 5, Anthony.
There we go! Scott Chasen, fog.net, Kansas.247sports.com. Scott, we'll talk to you about KU some other time. Enjoy the game tonight.
Thanks.
Look at that, professional. He got in, got out. Follow him on Twitter, @ChasenScott. Tweet us good things about the Suns over the course of tonight's game. It is up next.
We're back, baby!
Suns, Lakers. The Nuggets are beating the Blazers right now. Suns, Lakers is next. Bye, Mom.
You are listening to Almost Entirely Sports with Joshua Brisco on Sports Radio 810 WHB.